One Piece chapter 1039 is out, and this was a quality chapter. Not only was One Piece on the cover this week, but we also got a nice color spread. Not too much going on in this one. It's basically just the Straw Hats exploring a forest, but you can see some details in some of the clothing. Like Zoro says, always be calm, and you can see that Sanji says, I want freedom. You can see some words on some of the other shirts, but you can't really make it out. But basically everyone's kind of got their style going on. Now the title of this chapter is The Main Attraction. And I understand why, because it focuses solely on the fight between Law Kid and Big Mom with no side story whatsoever. Basically, at most we get glimpses of other people, but this entire chapter was based on that fight. However, I find it odd because the main attraction should be Luffy versus Kaido, so why this is called the main attraction just seems a little odd to me. Now the chapter does start with Momo trying to pull Onigashima away from the flower capital, but we see he's being called by somebody. And this is probably Zunisha, and he's probably being called through the voice of all things, as he was before. And based on the map, we can assume Zunisha is still a little ways away because he can't see who's calling, he just hears it. Now we quickly shift to the main attraction, and we start with Big Mom getting up from the bull attack, and we get a really good set of dialogue between Law and Kid. Basically, Law is calling out Kid for trying to one-up his attacks every time. Law goes in, does Kroom, makes Big Mom vulnerable and does damage, and then Kid kind of comes in with his, metal claw and tries to do damage behind him and take credit. Now this is something that's been raging through the community for a while now, that basically Kid isn't doing anything and Law is carrying this fight. And honestly, I believe that 100%. And even Law at this point is like, no, I'm doing most of the work here, you're kind of just coming up at the end. And Kid doesn't even deny it, he kind of just says, who cares, move on. It's very reminiscent of the rooftop where they were having that same kind of dialogue, and basically Luffy involved as well. They were talking about giving each other orders, someone being under someone else. Basically they're all trying to be independent and take their own glory. Law even proposes that Kid goes first and then Law comes in afterwards, but Kid doesn't have that either, and even at the end of this chapter it still goes with Law going first and then Kid trying to follow up. Now Kid mentions that with his trump card he basically wiped Big Mom out. And if his trump card was what he used at the end of the chapter, that is not the case. There's so much traction on this. Even Big Mom makes a comment that basically what Law is doing is what's doing the most damage to her. The shockwaves and the technique itself that makes her vulnerable, all of that, that's what the problem is. At this point, Big Mom's been hit so hard that she has broken bones, and you can even see her arm is snapped, and she doesn't even care. Instead, she takes some of her soul and uses it to heal her wounds. Now, I can't exactly tell if she healed herself or if she basically just brought her bones to life and had them set themselves in place. Because she says, let me bring you back, and they both respond with yes mama, which is how her homies respond to her. The reason I assume that's healing is because I don't think just bringing them back would let them function normally. I think they would still be broken. Law then tells Kid to basically set up for this next attack because it's going to be his last. And he's pretty much giving orders to Kid because he really needs Kid to fall in place here. He's got the idea, he's got the plan set in mind, but he needs Kid as backup, as support. And that's crazy because all of this fight, like the rooftop fight, the Big Mom fight, we've always seen Law as a support character. Basically his ability, his technique, all of it is very strong for supporting fighters, but not super strong 1v1. But here and now, Law is the main fighter and Kid is his support, 100%. Big Mom takes out the bull with the Mazer Saber, and that's the same move she used to take out Ulti, but instead of just, shooting it forward, she's using it as an actual swipe, like a sword. Kid uses his chance to jump in and uses Awakening, so he assigns Big Mom a magnetic force and then tracks her to the tower behind her. Basically, this sticks her to the wall where she can't move, and his plan is to ram her again with metal. If there's one thing we can agree on, it's that he has consistency with what he's doing. Now, other than being impressed with Law in this fight, I'm also impressed with Big Mom, because yes, she's a Yonko and she has this kind of power, but just the versatility and kind of the battle smart she has for this kind of thing, I think are top notch. She ends up taking the tower she's stuck to, tears it out of the wall and out of the ground, and spins around so Kid ends up slamming into the wall and not her. And if we're like the bumbling big meme, the character that people kind of see as basically a child with no real feats other than her strength alone, I think it shows that she is combat savvy, and she's definitely worthy of her place here. We then see a new move coming from the Mazer Saber, which is basically a homing spirit made of what looks like Prometheus and Hera kind of combined, but in the shape of a mother. Now, I think the mother is supposed to be basically Big Mom in her younger years, because it has some of the similar features like the body shape, the sharp nose, the hair. It looks kind of like Big Mom. And they attack X independently, so it's basically like Zeus or Prometheus in the fact that it's a form of her soul, and it's basically an attack form. And I'm pretty sure it's just a combination of Prometheus and Hera, just based on how it looks and what it's doing. But I think it's got like a essence of Big Mom that is the main function of control. Even with all this going, Law manages to use tact and drop a tower on Big Mom. Now this means that Law had a room up this entire time, because the Kroom, while it works on his sword, I don't believe it controls any of the area around him. So he still has to have a room up to do this. And speaking of Kroom, Law goes in again with his awakening. The thing that he was supposed to be a one and done, he's used it 3 times now, each more effective than the last. Now this time is really insane because not only does Law pierce through Big Mom, he pierces through Onigashima and down into the waters below. His sword extends so far that I'm pretty sure it goes deep into the bedrock past like the surface level of the water. It's down all the way down there. And it reminds me a lot of what he did in Punk Hazard, where basically he has this wide range that just comes out of nowhere. He just has the ability to extend his range to a massive field. Big Mom tries to get him off by punching him in the back of the head with armament hockey, and he still doesn't let go, which is a huge feat for Law. I think this is even bigger than when Kid got punched in the face by Big Mom, because I don't think she used hockey on that. And this is like point blank, Law getting hit in the back of the head with no defense. However, I think this does mess him up a little bit because we see him like whiting out and bleeding, and he's really trying to hold on. And then he unleashes Puncture Wile, and this shoots a hole straight through Big Mom, through the island, and through the bedrock and the ground below. Basically anything the sword was piercing gets a giant hole blasted in it. Now even as devastating as this attack looks, Big Mom still has the energy to keep going because she tells Misery to start burning Law. So even though this is a testament to what Law can do, Big Mom still ate that and she's still raring to go, which means she's not down for the count at the end of this chapter. I really don't think she can be. But basically with Big Mom on the move again and Law out of energy, he calls on Kid to step up. And Kid obviously doesn't want to be following orders, but he still steps in, and he's created what looks to be some kind of shock or electric based cannon made from metal. I think the kanji describe it as an electromagnetic cannon, and I'm not entirely sure what kind of damage it does. If this was the trump card, I'm not really sure how this would end up beating someone, because it looks like it's more blunt force or energy than anything else, and it doesn't seem like Big Mom is affected more than just being like knocked back. I'll be honest, and not even to meme about it, it seems like this is just another attack that pushes someone with a lot of force. Instead of using metal, he's just using electromagnetic waves to do the pushing, and it seems like it's a lot of blunt force damage. Now, to be fair, Big Mom is still shouting out, she's still bleeding, and they even kind of declare that, you know, her reign is over, but I don't see that happening. I think we're gonna go one of two ways. Either Big Mom is gonna fall through this hole in the ground and land on her ship, because they've been trying to get up, you know, they've fallen down each time and they should be somewhere at this point. So why not under Onigashima? Or, and the one I'd be more excited for, is that Big Mom gets up again. I really want her to put them to the brink if she's going to go down, or if she's going to be, you know, beaten for a period of time. Now I said it like the last 2 chapters that Law should be done, but he just hasn't been. And even now, as he's unleashed the strongest version of his attack and he's laid out and he can't move, I still feel like we're going to see more from Law if this fight continues. However, I do think that if this fight continues, Kid is going to end up picking up the slack and being more prominent in the fight. Based on the dialogue here, Kid has to step up. Kid has to have a solid finisher, or at least make it so that Law can finish her. One of the two. If anything we saw here was his trump card, then they're not going to finish this fight. I don't think the cannon is going to put down Big Mom. And as far as accumulated damage goes, it seems that Law has taken significantly more than Kid has. And I think that in the end of this fight, Kid is kind of clean as far as damage goes. Like, I think Law is taking a rough beating not only from Big Mom, but just from using his fruit to such an extent. While Kid, on the other hand, has kind of just been putting things together. He hasn't really been putting himself in harm's way, it's mostly just the objects he creates. So he should still have energy and be raring to go if Big Mom is still up. And that means he's got to put in some extra work. What he did here was definitely support for what Law was doing, but if he wants to stand on his own, he's got to do something else. He's got to do something that marks his ability to take on a Yonko on his own. But that is going to do it for me. An entirely action-based fight chapter. I wasn't expecting it, but I loved every second of it. Let me know what you guys think down below. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.
I know this.